But I wanted to give you a video to watch on oven safety, since that is what we will be using on Monday to bake your cookies. I realized though, after 2 hours of looking around on YouTube, that I was unable to find a good video. It doesn't seem like there's anything really out there for students of your age. Either it's for preschoolers and the videos are just saying grab a parent to help you, which I ain't your mama, or the videos are about 20 minutes long and they're on industrial equipment or something, and it just doesn't really explain to you what I want you to know. So I decided to make my own video. The first thing that you'll need to know about oven safety is, of course, that you're dealing with things that are hot. So you want to make sure you have a nice new pair of pot holders or oven mitts to handle things that are coming out of the oven. You don't want to burn yourself. So you want to make sure that your oven mitts or pot holders are free from any damage. Damage to the pot holder could possibly mean that you're going to end up getting burnt. And if your pot holders or oven mitts maybe have been used an awful lot, then they get really thin and you can also end up burning yourself that way too. So just make sure that they're relatively in good condition. If you don't have any that are in good condition, you can always go and get some from the Dollar Tree. So oven mitts and pot holders are essential. The other thing that I wanted to explain to you when dealing with an oven and a cookie or a baking sheet is that you'll want to make sure that you're lining your baking sheet. Reasons being, one, if you are baking cookies per se and you are placing them on a lined baking sheet, you won't really have to worry about lots of cleanup. So all you would have to do is take your cookies off of the sheet once they're finished and kind of throw away your garbage, and then you didn't really have anything touching the pan. So in theory, you shouldn't really have to be washing your pan, which is probably still going to be hot, and we don't really have a lot of time to let the pans cool before you can wash them. So you'll want to make sure that you're lining your baking sheet with something. Usually I will have either foil or parchment paper sitting out on the ingredient cart for you. This time around we are going to be using parchment paper because we are baking cookies and they come off of the parchment paper really nicely. So what parchment paper is, it's basically like an oven safe type of paper. So it looks like paper pretty much when you pull it out. What you'll want to do then is just get a piece of paper off of the roll that's about the size of your pan. Make sure that it's not too long. You don't want it draping extensively over the sides here because it'll just get brown and shrivel up, and it's just not necessary. It's a waste. So just kind of measure out a piece that's about as long as your baking sheet and then rip it off, and you can lay it right on top of your sheet to line it. Things that you do not want to use would be wax paper, okay? Never, ever, ever, ever put wax paper in the oven. Wax paper is not something that is oven safe. I'm not really sure why students, for whatever reason, come to my class and they think that this is something that's oven safe or that's supposed to go in the oven, because it's not. Wax paper is basically, it's microwave safe, and it's meant to help protect things so that you can like roll out dough or whatever you're working on and not really make too much of a mess, but it is not oven safe. So wax paper does have a wax film on top of it, and the wax actually ends up burning off in the oven, and it creates a lot of dark smoke. So it's going to scare the crap out of you, and it's going to scare the crap out of me. So please do not use wax paper. For the purpose of middle school labs, I make sure that I do not have wax paper sitting out to confuse you. But do remember that it's not oven safe for when you're at home, and or if you take my class or Mrs. Salvetti's class in Culinary 1 in high school. So these types of things might possibly be sitting out. Just make sure you don't get confused. Alright, so your baking sheet is lined. You have your oven mitts and everything pretty handy. Make sure to preheat your oven. I can explain how to do that in school if you would like, but for the most part, your oven will be preheated for you when you get to class. You will know this by, one, me telling you, and two, the room will probably feel hot already. With 6 ovens in the room, and now the room is even smaller than in past years, it's probably going to get pretty toasty in there. I usually make sure that the ovens have been preheated for you because it does take a little bit of time, and I don't like to waste time on lab days. I want to make sure that you have enough time to bake your items, clean up, and eat. So your oven will probably already be preheated for you. The next thing with oven safety is how to open the oven to get things out or to put something in. So you want to make sure that when you're opening the oven, you should stand off to the side of the oven. You should never be standing in front of the oven when you want to go and open it up. So if you stand off to the side of the oven and you open it up, any of the hot air coming out is not going to smack you right in the face as if you were like standing right in front of it. So you're not going to get fogged up glasses or anything like that. So standing to the side is best. So when you stand to the side, you'll just make sure that the oven door comes the whole way down. You do not want to have the oven door propped open at all. This could cause you to get burned. The oven door could easily move. So just make sure it's the entire way down. Now, if you are freaked out about putting something in the oven because you really don't want to get burnt, you are more than welcome to have your oven mitts on and ready, even though your pan is not hot yet, or you could use your pot holders. It doesn't matter to me. So you would just take your pot holders or your oven mitts, and you would take your lined baking sheet with your cookies on it, and you would put it into the oven. Now, we want to use the bottom rack of the oven. It'll help your cookies to bake a little bit quicker. If you put things on the top, it takes a little bit longer, and the top is usually where the broiler heating element is. So the heat is directly on it if you're broiling, but not if you're baking. So we like to use the bottom rack to make our cookies. So once your cookie sheet is in, make sure that it's placed about in the middle of the rack. You don't want to push it the entire way to the back of the oven. So when you're putting it in, you want to make sure that it's lined up horizontally like this with the edge here, and that it's right in the middle. If you shove it the whole way to the back, you're going to have a lot more chance of getting burnt when you try and pull it out because your arm could possibly hit this grate here. So just make sure that it's in the middle. When you're ready to close the door, of course you stand to the side again and you close the door. Now, make sure that your other lab mates know that you're going to be opening the oven. That way nobody's backing up into it or some stupid accident can't happen. When your cookies are done, you could either use the timer on the oven or you can watch the clock in the classroom to make sure that you know when they're done. But when they're done, again, make sure your oven door comes the entire way down. Reach in. Make sure you have pot holders or oven mitts this time. They are not optional. You will get burnt if you don't. Pull your baking sheet out, and you can place it on top of your stove. And that way you don't have to worry about anything getting melted or burnt or ruining the countertops. Then you can go ahead and you can put your oven door back up, and you can click the stop or cancel button to turn the oven off. One other thing that I want to mention to you when you are using the oven is, let me open it back up here. Just make sure that when you are taking things in and out, you have your pot holders on or your oven mitts on, and you want to make sure that you're not leaving the door open. If you let the door open for an extensive amount of time, you're essentially allowing all the hot air in here that you've preheated the oven for to billow out, and now we have a hotter room, and your oven isn't going to be at the temperature that it's supposed to be. So you want to do these types of things, getting things in and out of the oven relatively quickly. Now that doesn't mean to race and end up burning yourself because you're going too fast, but you don't want to just like open the door and then everybody's standing around and staring at your cookies to see if they're ready. That's not really something that you need to be doing. So just make sure that you're taking, just a nice amount of time to open the door, take the cookies out, close the door. Don't let it just hang open.